There are two things which are in abundance when it comes to modern day cybersecurity. One is vulnerabilities, and the second is terminologies. Here is another one for you, OPSEC. So, now what the heck OPSEC is for a layman or a beginner? In very simple words, OPSEC stands for Operational Security, and OPSEC is a process that prevents sensitive information from getting into wrong hands. The term is not new, but being now used in the context of cybersecurity. Another OPSEC meaning is a process that identifies seemingly innocuous actions that could inadvertently reveal critical or sensitive data to a cybercriminal. OPSEC is both a process and a strategy, and it encourages IT and security managers to view their operations and systems from the perspective of a potential attacker. It includes analytical activities and processes like behavior monitoring, social media monitoring, and other security best practices in general. A crucial piece of what OPSEC is the use of risk management, and the risk management is used to discover potential threats and vulnerabilities in an organization's processes, the way they operate, and the software and hardware their employees use. Looking at systems and operations from a third party's point of view enables OPSEC teams to discover issues they may have overlooked and can be crucial to implementing the appropriate countermeasures that will keep their most sensitive data secure. Okay, so I hope that now you have a broader understanding of what exactly OPSEC is. Let's look at 5 steps of operational security. So there are 5 steps to OPSEC that allows companies to secure their data processes. The first one is all about identifying sensitive data. Understanding what data organizations have and the sensitive data they store on their systems is a crucial first step to OPSEC security. You got to know what you're saving. This includes identifying information such as customer details, credit card data, employee detail, financial statements, intellectual property, and product research. It is vital for organizations to focus their resources on protecting this critical data. Then comes identifying possible threats. With sensitive information identified, organizations then need to determine the potential threat presented to this data. This includes third parties that may want to steal the data, competitors that could gain an advantage by stealing informational, which is basically corporate espionage, and insider threats or malicious insiders like disgruntled workers or negligent employees. Then we have the task of analyzing the vulnerabilities. Organizations then need to analyze the potential vulnerabilities in their security defenses that could provide an opportunity for threats to materialize. This involves assessing the processes and technology solutions that safeguard their data and identifying loopholes or weaknesses that attacker could potentially exploit. Cool. Then we have to check about threat level. Each identified vulnerability then has to have a level of threat attributed to it. The vulnerability should be based on likelihood of attackers targeting them, the level of damage caused if they are exploited, and the amount of time and work required to mitigate and repair the damage. The more damage that could be inflicted and the higher the chances of an attack occurring, the more resources and priority that organization should place in mitigating that risk. Last but not least, as a step, make sure that you have a plan to mitigate these threats because this information provides organizations with everything they need to devise a plan to mitigate the threats which were identified above. So this is the final step in OPSEC, and that is basically putting in countermeasures in place to eliminate threats and mitigate cyber risks. And they typically include updating your hardware, creating policies around safeguarding sensitive data, and providing employer training on security best practices, and also the corporate data policies. Now we come to the best practices around operational security. The first and foremost is all about change management. Any company worth their salt must implement specific change management process that their employee can follow in case network changes are performed. These changes must be controlled and logged so that organizations can appropriately audit and monitor the amendments. Then we have device access restrictions. So this shouldn't be an open barn door. Companies must restrict access to their network to only devices that absolutely require it. Any sensitive organizations or any organizations with sensitive data, they must deploy need to know bases around their network. And this theory should be applied to all the corporate networks. Network device authentication should be used as common rule when it comes to accessing that information. Least privilege access is the norm these days, and it is part of OPSEC. Employees need to be assigned the minimum level of access to data, network, and resources, whether they are on prem or in the cloud, that they require to do their jobs successfully. This primarily means deploying the principle of least privileges, um, which ensures that any program, process, or a user only has a bare minimum. This is quite critical because it ensures better security level. It also prevents insider threats and minimizes the attack surface, which also limits the risk of malware. Then we have dual control implementation. Users responsible for managing their network shouldn't be made in charge of security. Organizations must ensure that teams or individuals responsible for maintaining their corporate networks are separate from their cybersecurity team. Automation is the key here. Humans are often the weakest link in any organization's security process. Human error can result in mistakes, data inadvertently ending up in the wrong hands, and important details being overlooked or forgotten. So, you need to automate your processes as much as possible, and that is very important in the cloud too. Last best practices, which is part of OPSEC, is disaster management. A critical part of any security defense is to plan for disaster and institute a solid incident response plan. Even the most robust OPSEC security needs to be supported with plans that identify potential risks and outline how an organization will go about responding to cyber attacks and mitigating the potential damages. So that's all there is to it for OPSEC. If you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to put them in the comments. Thanks.